If you're in this room, you are the person in your family, in your workplace, in your circle of friends. You are the person that other people have always thought is a little bit different. Is that true? Yeah. Not bad, not bad. Just different. Because you look at things differently. You have a different way of seeing the world. And we laugh at that sometimes. On the one hand. But I also know this. I know that when your family and the people in your workplace and your circle of friends, when their lives fall apart, when their marriage, their perfect marriage ends in a day, and when their career falls apart, and when their health fails, that you're the one that they come to. They come to you and they say, what happened? What happened to my life? Because you have the courage to see the world in a different way. You have the strength to live your life in a different way. And this is very, very important, and this is why we're here today. We're here today to do something very powerful, very important. Let me ask a question. How many people in this room believe that you have a power within your body that is not fully used? How many believe that? Okay, how many believe that the power is there first? Do you believe the power is there? Okay, my question, why don't you use it? Why aren't we using that power? There's a reason why. And that reason is what we're here to do today. In the Western world, in the modern world, we base our understanding of our lives and the universe upon science. And I was trained as a scientist. And science is good. And sometimes science is wrong. There are two places where science has made false assumptions about you, about me, about our universe, about this world. Two places. And we're going to identify what those places are, and we're going to explore them today. Because it changes everything. It changes everything when we understand the truth where science made the mistake. First of all, science tells us that the space in the emptiness of the universe is truly empty. And we know that that is not true. That the space between you and me and the space between the stars, they say is empty. But that's not true. Nothing could be further from the truth. Because there's something in that space. And that something is what gives us the power to heal our bodies and to bring peace to our world and to change this world if we understand the language to speak to that stuff that is in the emptiness. But science tells us there's nothing there, number one. Number two, science tells us that the inner experience in your heart, in my heart, that our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our prayers, our beliefs in our bodies have no effect on the world beyond our bodies. Do you believe that? I'm going to tell you, there is a language. There is a language that lives in every human that walks this earth. It's a language of no words. It's the language of human emotion. It's a language that was lost to Western traditions 1,700 years ago. But it's a language that has been remembered in ancient and indigenous traditions. So if you're like me, you'd like to know what this day is all about. Do you know what today is all about? Do you even know what we're going to do? Would you like to know? Okay, so this is what we're going to do. The bottom line, these are false assumptions. There is something in the emptiness. There is no empty space. It is alive. It is pulsing. It is living. It is intelligent. There is a field of energy that holds everything together, and you and I are part of that field. What we're going to do today, the bottom line, we're going to share the science that tells us, number one, that the field is there. Number two, we're going to discover that our bodies and our world are the materialization of that field. From the unreal to the real, from the invisible to the visible, from the probability of quantum possibilities to the reality of our physical world. And number three, we'll find that the language of human emotion, it's a language you already know. Everyone knows this language. We're going to learn how to use this language to speak to this field, the divine matrix, in a way that is meaningful and useful in our lives. How many feel now that something really big is happening in our world today? You think something really big? Does the world feel different to you? Does it feel different? It's bigger than Iraq, bigger than George Bush, bigger than who knows. Do you feel that? It is. In 2003, scientists published a report telling us that this is a time unlike any other time in the history of the earth or the history of humankind. What they say is this. They said there are 5 scenarios that are unfolding. 5 scenarios that are happening right now. And any one of those scenarios, if it goes to completion, could end our civilization, could end our world as we know it. If any one goes to completion, all 5 of them are happening right now. This is a time unlike any time in recorded human history. But the mystery is that no one knows how this time will end, because you and I are choosing that outcome right now. And we're doing it in ways that we're only beginning to understand through the new science that tells us that we are not victims of this world. You are not a victim of your world. You don't have to suffer and live in disease and grow old the way that we've believed that science tells us. We don't have to use war to solve our problems. And we're living a time when all of those things come together right now. And what gives you and me the power to participate is the fact, and it is a fact, that this field of energy exists and that every one of you is speaking to this field every day. The question is, do you know what you're saying to the field? Do you know what you're saying? How many in here are fans of the Sufi poet Rumi? Any Rumi fans? Rumi? Wow. Okay, Rumi. Rumi says, what strange beings we are. He says that sitting in hell, at the bottom of the dark, we are afraid of our own immortality. I think there's probably a lot of truth to what Rumi says, and it may go even deeper. It may go even deeper. What if we're not so afraid of our immortality? What if we are afraid of our power to heal the hell that we create in this world? What if we're afraid of the power within us to heal the suffering? If we had that kind of power, does it truly frighten us? Maybe on a subconscious level. Maybe that's what's happening. I'm going to share a story with you. It's a true story. It's a story of the birth of 2 baby girls, twins, and they were born prematurely. 7 weeks premature. And in the United States, there is a protocol, there is a practice. Practice is good? Okay. There is a practice. I want to thank our translators in this room right here for helping us. Thank you so much. They're working very hard today, I can tell. There is a practice in the United States when babies are born prematurely. The first thing they do is separate the babies. Now, can you imagine living in the womb of your mother for 6 or 7 or 8 months and living close to another being, your twin brother or your twin sister, and hearing the heartbeat of your mother every day and the heartbeat of your twin every day, and suddenly you're taken from that environment. And the first thing that happens is you're separated, and they put one twin, one premature baby in one incubator, and the second baby in a second incubator under the hot lights of the intensive care unit in the hospital. They put them in separate rooms, lying on their stomachs, face down. That's what they do with the new babies, the premature babies. So these 2 baby girls came into the world, and this is what happened. They were separated, taken to different rooms, and immediately one of the little girls began to fail. Her vital signs began to drop. She was dying. There was a nurse who was working at the time, and the nurse said, "I must do something or this baby will die." She said, "I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to break the protocol." And she reached in, picked up the young baby that was dying. She took her into the intensive care unit with her sister, and you know where the story's going. You know what happened. She put the weaker girl in the incubator with the stronger girl. But this is where the story gets really interesting. And this is what tells me what I'm about to share with you is something that we are born with. It's not something that we learn, because here is what happened. They put the weaker baby girl in with the stronger one. And immediately the stronger one reached out with her arm and placed her arm around the shoulders of her baby sister. And the minute she did that, the instant she did that, her sister's vital signs stabilized. And she got stronger and stronger and stronger, and they both lived. Okay, can you feel that feeling? Can you feel that? See, I can see you're holding your heart. Some of you have tears in your eyes. Why? That feeling is a language. That feeling is a power that lives inside of your body. If I had walked onto the stage and said, "Now, have that feeling," it may have been hard to do. But you saw an image that gave you a reason for that feeling. You're still crying. It's a powerful story. It's a powerful image. It's true. And the 2 girls lived, and they're doing very well today. That feeling is something that does not happen in your mind. It happens in your heart. The image and the story went directly to your heart. It bypassed your mind. It bypassed the filters. It bypassed the logic, the questions, the conditioning, the judgment. It was just a feeling. Today, modern science is beginning to understand that that feeling that happens inside of our bodies has a direct effect on the stuff our world is made of, on the atoms and the molecules of our physical world. How many in this room like science? Do you like science? How many do not like science? Well, this is fun science. Because what I'd like to do today, the first part of this day, I'm going to share with you the science that is so new. It is not yet in the textbooks, on the one hand. It's not in the textbooks yet. On the other hand, it is the science that you and I and our children will use to solve the problems that we're leaving in the world today. It's a very different way of thinking about things. So, for the next few moments, I would like to share with you the science. And I think you'll enjoy the science very much, because it gives us a way to understand what we will see next. After we understand the science, I'd like to invite you into the monasteries of Tibet, into the monasteries of Egypt and Peru, because it's in those places that the wisdom is kept of the language of our hearts, the wisdom in their cultures that was lost in our cultures. So as we go through the day, I'm sharing the science, and then we will go into the ancient wisdom that describes the science in another language. And then we will see miraculous video in here of that science applied to create healing inside the body of a living human. We will see a woman that has been diagnosed with cancer, and we can see inside of her body through ultrasound, through a sonogram. And we can watch this practice of human emotion, focused human emotion, heal that cancer in less than 3 minutes for one person. And then we'll see the same principle applied for peace in the Middle East during the Israeli-Lebanese war in the early 1980s. Because it's the same principle. And then we'll have the opportunity in this room to learn the language that creates those miracles. Is that okay? Are you okay if we do that today? So, okay, good. Thank you. So the question, how much power? How much power do we really have to change our world, to change our lives, to change our bodies? How much power do you believe that we really have? The question that we're really asking is, who are we? Who are we? And this is the great mystery and the controversy in the language of science. Are we simply observers, passive observers in this universe, watching the world go by, or are we powerful creators? As our most cherished religious and spiritual traditions have always said, are we actually powerful creators that have forgotten how to use our power? Well, this is the great question that has been asked by scientists for 400 years. When I was in school in the 1970s, 1960s, I was taught that the universe began a long time ago, and that we have come along relatively recently, and that we are essentially powerless specks of dust in the universe. And after we are gone, the universe will never know that we were here. That's what I was taught when I was in school. Does that sound familiar to you? That's one way of thinking. There is another way of thinking that says something very different. It says the universe began a long time ago. We have come along relatively recently. However, we are powerful creators that are changing our world and changing the universe as we live our lives. And this is the controversy of the scientists. Albert Einstein believed the first idea. Albert Einstein said, we live in a world which exists independently of us humans, which stands before us like a great eternal riddle, at least partially accessible to our inspection and thinking. It's very complex. What he's saying is, Albert Einstein believes that we will be lucky if we understand even a little bit of how the universe works, and that we are very insignificant. Okay. A colleague of Albert Einstein was alive during his time and is still alive today. His name is Professor John Wheeler, Princeton University physicist. He's still with us today. John Wheeler says completely the opposite. They studied in the same time. They had the same information, the same books, the same data, and they had very different opinions. Look at what John Wheeler says. John Wheeler says we could not even imagine a universe that did not contain us, because, he says, it is the act of us observing the universe that makes the universe as it is. He said it is the act of us observing the world around us. He said that we're part of a universe that is not finished yet. John Wheeler says the universe is incomplete. He says that we are tiny specks, tiny patches of the universe looking at itself and building itself in what he calls a participatory universe. Participatory. I like that word. It means that we are not controlling the universe. We are not imposing our will upon the universe. We are participating, co-creating. Does that mean anything to you when you see this? Let me ask you a question. Let's explore this idea just a little bit. I know that you all lie awake in bed at night, sleepless, because you're wondering why we have never found the smallest particle of matter, right? Or you lie awake in bed at night, sleepless, because you wonder why we've never found the edge of the universe, right? No, I do. The truth is that we may never find the smallest particle of matter. And we may never find the edge of the universe. Scientists build huge machines, cyclotrons, particle accelerators. And they take a little particle of matter and they accelerate it to the speed of light, almost. And they smash it into another particle so they can break it into many pieces, thinking that somewhere in there they will find the ultimate, smallest particle of matter. And they never find it. Do you know why? Because here's what happens. Every time they think they find the smallest particle, they look and there's something else there. Something else is there. The reason that we will probably never find the smallest particle, and the reason that we will probably never find the edge of the universe, is because of what John Wheeler says. He says the act of us searching, the act of the human heart and the human mind looking at the universe, expecting to see something, will always create something for us to see. The act of us looking with the expectation that something is there is an act of creation unto itself. Does that make sense to you? This is important. This is important to you. Think about this. I invite you to think about this. If looking with the expectation that something exists is what creates that something, then what does it mean when you are conditioned to look at your body, to search your body every day or every week, looking for something to be wrong, looking for an abnormality, looking for a lump, looking for a discoloration? You know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not saying don't look. What I'm suggesting is it's your consciousness while you are looking that is important. What happens if you look at your body in the mirror every day and you say, "Ah, beautiful body"? And that is an act of creation. Can you see how that is different than if you look in your body for a lump or something that should not be there? Does that make sense? Very, very powerful, what John Wheeler is saying. This is a scientist saying that consciousness is creating our physical universe. The question is, if feeling and consciousness is creating, what is it that we feel? What do we believe about our world? The new discoveries suggest that the power to change our bodies and to change our world is based in what we call belief. Belief. Our belief of what is real. We live our lives based in what we believe about our world. Would you agree with that? We live our lives based on what we believe about, sure, about ourselves, our world, one another, our limitations, our capabilities. I was trained as a scientist. When I began to understand that we live our lives based upon our beliefs, my question is, where do those beliefs come from? And what I found is that those beliefs come from what other people tell us. The beliefs come from what history tells us, what science tells us, what religion tells us, what our culture, what our family, our friends tell us. That's where our beliefs come from. Would you agree with that? So let me ask a question. What if they're wrong? What if they're wrong? What if you and I are living our lives in the beliefs of other people who are incorrect? What does that mean for us? How powerful do you think a belief really is? How powerful, truly? There's an author. His name was Neville in the early 20th century. He wrote a book called The Power of Awareness, a beautiful book. And what Neville said was this. He said that our power of belief is a power, an infinite power against which no earthly force is of the slightest significance. Our power of belief is an infinite power against which no earthly force is of the slightest significance. Do you believe that you have a power within you against which no earthly force is of the slightest significance? Is that possible? Do you believe that? Let me show you some examples. Let me share some examples of miracles. You've all heard these stories before. You've heard stories of miracles. This is a story of a woman who lifted a car 20 times her body weight to free a person who was trapped underneath the car in an accident. You've heard stories like this. She freed this person. She went to the hospital with this person. She waited in the waiting room. The doctor came out and said, "This man will live because you lifted the car and saved his life." And when she heard the words that described what she did, she passed out. Unconscious. Because she had done something that even she couldn't believe. She wasn't thinking about it. All she said, "I just knew I had to get him free, and there was no one else around at the time." How many in this room are fire walkers? Fire walkers. Do you walk the fire pit? Okay, a few. On June 15th, 2005, Amanda Dennison, Alberta, Canada, entered the book of world records for the longest fire walk. Look at this walk. She crossed this pit, 220 feet long. I don't know how many meters that is. Approximately? – Okay, it's a big fire pit. Big pit. averaging 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit. She crossed this uninjured. This is a picture of Amanda walking through the coals. This is a picture of Amanda after the walk. And the question, she has no injuries. The question is why? Why no injuries? It's because of her beliefs. The woman lifted the car 20 times her body weight because of her beliefs. Amanda walked through the fire because of her beliefs. These are examples we see every day of a power within us. But they're rare examples. What if they become everyday examples? Miracles of belief. We ask the question, who are we? What we know is that we're made of quantum energy. You all have heard that we are quantum energy, yes? Yes? Okay. For 70 years, scientists have been telling us that we are little particles of quantum energy. And now we believe them. But now scientists say those little quantum particles can do miraculous things, amazing things. But the scientists say those miracles have nothing to do with your life. For example, quantum particles, we know, can exist as a physical particle, like this. It's a quantum particle. That particle can exist invisible. The particle is still there. It has just changed its form. Quantum particles can exist in one place in a moment in time. Quantum particles can exist in two places or many places at the same time, and they are always connected. They are always connected with one another. So the particles are always connected. Quantum particles can communicate with themselves in the past and in the future. This is very interesting. Scientists can take a quantum particle, and they know everything there is to know about this particle. They know its rotation, its plus, its minus, its charge, in the present, now. Okay? They can take it into the future, and now, this is the past, this is the future. Okay? You okay so far? All right, now. They can change the particle now, and it changes what it had to be in the past to get to now. They can change the particle in the present, and it changes the particle in the past, even though the past already happened. Very interesting. So the question is, we're made of those particles. So can we do what these particles can do? We're made of quantum particles. Are they showing us our limits, or are they showing us our possibility, our potential? What do you think? Are those quantum particles that we're made of showing us limitations or possibilities? I think so. I think so. And I think you'll see why in just a moment. Can we do everything that those particles can do? The answer is yes. But it's based on what we believe to be true. Not what we think in our minds. What we believe in our hearts. And that is a very subtle, very powerful difference. Not the mind, the heart. We're made of those particles. We are held together through a focus, a force. This is a clue. What is the force that holds our quantum particles together as our bodies? What is the force that begins with the letter C that holds all of the particles of your body together? What is that force called? Anyone? No, it starts with a C. Okay, there it is. Consciousness. Consciousness. Very good. Some yes, some not so good. Consciousness is what holds these particles together. Consciousness organizes the particles into your body and into this world. 1944, the father of quantum theory, his name was Max Planck. Max Planck made this statement. He said, the stuff of our world does not exist the way we think it exists. Max Planck said, as a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about the atoms this much. Okay? There is no matter as such. What he's saying is the stuff that we're made of does not exist the way we believe it exists. He goes on to say that what we think is matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force. He said there's a force out there that holds everything together in our bodies and in our world. He said we must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious mind, an intelligent mind. He said this mind is the matrix of all matter. This mind is the matrix of all matter. If you saw the movie The Matrix, this is where the movie was based from. This information. The father of quantum theory, Max Planck, said that there is an energy, a field of energy that holds everything together, that this is not solid and we are not solid. Belief is the code that takes that field of energy, possibilities, and translates that field into the reality of this world. Belief is the code that translates possibilities into the reality of this world. Here's what scientists say to us about the way this world works. Scientists are telling us now that in this field, all possibilities already exist in the quantum energy, in the soup of quantum possibility. All possibilities already exist. In the quantum possibilities, you are already healed. Peace has already happened. Joy is already everywhere. All of the greatest suffering, all of the greatest peace already exists in the quantum possibilities. And here's what they say happens with you and me. That with our mind, we reach in to those possibilities. We imagine our healing. We imagine the peace. We imagine our perfect relationship. We imagine the abundance in our lives with our mind. And that's how we lock that possibility into place. And with our heart, we give that possibility life. We breathe life into the image of our mind through the feeling in our heart and make it real in our world. Now, I'm going to share with you the science of how this happens. We have to understand what a belief is. We talk about belief. What is a belief? Belief is the marriage. It is a union of thought and emotion. Thought and emotion. And now we have to define thought and emotion. This is an image from an ancient Sanskrit text. It shows the energy centers of the body, the chakras. I know you all are familiar with chakras. They say that thought happens in the upper chakras, right here. This is thought. This is where we imagine the quantum possibility. The emotion happens in the creative center, in the lower chakras. This is emotion. And they say our emotions are only two: love and fear. Love and the opposite of love. So when we think a thought in our mind, we fuel that thought. We give our thought life through the love or the fear that we place into the thought. And when we do that, we create a feeling. And now we have a definition for feeling. Feeling is the union, the marriage of emotion and thought. What we think of a possibility and our love or our fear of that thought. Does that make sense? Is that good? This is important because we're going to use this. Does this make sense? Okay? What is the one energy center in the body that does not have the circle? What is the one center that we have not talked about here? Precisely, the heart. Feeling happens in our heart. Feeling doesn't happen in the mind. Feeling doesn't happen in the lower, well, a little bit, but not much in the lower centers. Feeling happens in our heart. Feeling and belief are connected. Feeling and belief. So in our hearts, we have hate, sadness, joy, compassion. These are feelings. These are not emotions. To have hate, sadness, joy, compassion, we must have a thought, and then the love or the fear for that thought that creates these feelings. So now we have a definition of feeling. Feeling is the union of thought and emotion. You're going to see this in a 2,000-year-old text this afternoon. Exactly the same thing. So our belief translates the quantum possibilities that we imagine into the physical reality of our world. And I want to show you how. I want to show you how that happens. I don't want you just to believe me, to take my word. I want to show you the proof so your mind can see the proof. Belief is what translates those possibilities into the atoms of our world. The quantum possibility exists as waves only. But this world is made of atoms. So I think you're going to like what you're going to see. Do you remember a long time ago, when I was in school, and maybe when you were in school, we were told that the atom looks like this. Looks like a little solar system. Long time ago, remember? And we were taught that the atom is made of things. A thing in the center and things that orbit, things that circulate. Okay? That's not what scientists believe today. Now the atom, they believe, looks like this. It looks like energy. The atom no longer looks like things. It looks like waves of energy rather than particles of things. Now this is very important. You're going to see why. I think you will like what you're going to see in just a moment. So just work with me. So the quantum atom is made of waves of energy rather than particles of things. And this is very important. This is very important. If you want to change an atom, you have to change the energy that the atom lives in. If you want to change the stuff, the physical stuff of our world, you must change the energy that that stuff exists within. Is that okay? Is that good? Does that make sense to you? You okay with that? Okay. We're going slowly because something big is about to happen here. Einstein said this very well. Einstein actually said the field that connects everything together is what he called the governing agency of the particle. Einstein said the field is what determines how the atom behaves. It's in the field. The sole governing agency is what Albert Einstein said. So the field that we're talking about, the field is made of electrical energy. It's made of magnetic energy, two energies. The field that holds everything together. This is out of a traditional text, a traditional physics text. Look at what this says. This says if you change the electric field, that you will change the way the atom behaves, and there's actually a name for this. It is called the Stark effect. So if you change the electrical field, the Stark effect, you change the atom, or if you change the magnetic field, it's called the Zeeman effect, you change the atom. So all this is saying is that science knows today, if you change the electrical field or you change the magnetic field, you change the atom. Okay, that's good? Okay, watch what happens. What organ in your body produces the strongest electrical field in your body? Guess. Okay? See, I told you would like this. Okay, our world is made of electrical and magnetic energy. The atom. And the science says if you change the electrical field or you change the magnetic field, you change that atom. Okay, there is one organ in your body that produces the strongest electrical field and the strongest magnetic field in your body. Here's a clue. I'll give you a clue. Right there. Your heart. And it's where you have the feeling. The feeling that you had when you saw the baby girls. That feeling that we call a feeling is actually creating waves of electrical and magnetic energy in your heart that changes your body and changes your world, but you don't have to know that because you simply had a feeling. And this is what the ancients understood and what they left in their temples, in their texts, in the monasteries, in the language of their time. They understood this. Our heart, look at this. The human heart produces the strongest electrical and magnetic fields in the body. Some people said the brain. The brain does produce these fields, but look. The heart's electrical field is 100 times stronger than the brain. 100 times stronger than the brain. The heart's magnetic field is up to 5,000 times stronger than the brain's magnetic field. And the references, the technical references, I won't read them here. They're on the website, my website, if you would like the technical references. But you see what's happening here. Our heart produces the fields that change our world and change our body. Can you see that so far? Beliefs create the electrical waves. Beliefs change those magnetic waves. What you believe about yourself, what you believe about me, what you believe about your world, about your relationship to God, about peace on this earth is creating what is happening on this earth right now. Beliefs change our physical world. Beliefs change matter. Now I have to stop and ask the question, does this make sense so far? Does it make sense in the back of the room? It's good? Okay. I'm going to come visit you later this afternoon. Good. It's good. Okay, if this makes sense, now we can move on. 1968, Jerry Garcia concert. Don't look too long. These are waves of energy. Quantum possibilities, scientists tell us, exist as waves of energy. The waves are contracting and expanding. They're coming and they're going. These are the possibilities of your life. Your perfect relationship is coming and it's going. Your abundance, your perfect job, it's coming and it's going. Because the waves are always in motion. Okay, let me ask you a question. What would happen if the wave was not coming and was not going? If it was in one place, what would we call that wave? If it's not coming and it's not going? Let's see what this would look like. Okay. Can you see this wave? It is pulsing, but it's not coming and it's not going. Can you see that? This is called a standing wave. A standing wave. It's not coming and it's not going. The possibilities, the quantum possibilities of your life are these waves that are coming and going. The standing wave is the reality. Okay? The quantum possibilities, the soup of all possibilities, are coming and going. But the reality of this world is a wave that is standing wave. It is not coming and it's not going. This is what atoms look like. Atoms are the waves that are stationary. Quantum possibilities are the waves that are coming and going. Okay, does that make sense so far? Okay, because if it does, you're going to like what happens next. And then it won't be so technical. Okay, this makes sense. Let me ask, our beliefs in our heart produce the standing wave. Your heart produces the wave that locks the possibilities into place. Your heart is what produces the waves that make atoms. It's what you believe in your heart is what locks the quantum possibility into the reality of this moment. Heart waves are standing waves. Now, this is important. We're going to work with our hearts this afternoon. I'm going to share with you an experiment. How many have heard of the very famous double-slit experiment performed in 1909? 1909. A couple. This is the experiment that began the ideas of quantum physics. It's a very important experiment. Look at what happened. Scientists in 1909 took a particle of matter called a photon. Photon. It's P-H-O-T-O-N. They have this photon right here. And they take this photon and they wanted to shoot the photon at this target. Before it could reach this target, it passes through one opening, through this barrier. Okay? So easy experiment. They take the particle, passes through the barrier, goes to the target. The particle acts like a particle. Everyone is happy. It's a good experiment. This is good. Okay? Then they tried the experiment again and changed one thing. They're using the same kind of particle, the same target. This time, the barrier has two openings. Now, they believe that the particle can only be in one place at one time, and they were not prepared for what happens in this experiment. Should we do this experiment? You want to see? Okay, watch what happens. This is a photon, a particle of light. It's the stuff our world and our bodies are made of. So they are experimenting with the stuff of reality is what they're doing. They take this particle and they fire it and it disappeared. And they said, what happened? The next time they saw the particle was at this target, but it's not a particle. It's a wave, meaning that it passed through both openings at the same time. The particle changed itself to accommodate the conditions. And this is actually a drawing. This is from the actual science notebook of 1909, showing what these waves look like. This is a mystery. So the scientists are asking the question, why did this happen? They're saying the particle began as a particle. It began as matter. But look at this. It behaves like a wave. It behaves like energy. And they're asking why. Why does the particle change? They asked this question. They said, who knows that there are two openings possible for that particle? The scientists in the room know. The particle knows. But the particle can't know anything. And the scientists, they say, well, we know, but that cannot possibly have an effect on reality, can it? So here's the question. Who knows that there are two openings available? The scientist and the particles. And this is the answer to our question here. Because what the scientists discovered is that their knowledge, the scientist's consciousness, was affecting the particle in the experiment. The fact that the scientists knew that there were different openings affected the way the particle works. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that? Here's why that's important. It's because they are showing that their consciousness is affecting our physical world, and they were showing it in 1909. The observer changed the particles of our world. The observer changed the particles. John Wheeler, Princeton University, made this statement. He said, we had this old idea that there is a universe out there, and that here is man, the observer, safely protected from the universe by a 6-inch slab of plate glass, as he calls it. This is John Wheeler saying this. He says, now, however, we learn that to even observe an electron, we have to shatter that plate glass, We have to shatter the plate glass. So the old word observer simply has to be crossed off the books. There are no observers. The scientist in the room affected the particles. There are no observers. You are not an observer in the universe. By being in this world, you are having an effect on this world all the time. John Wheeler says we must cross the word observer off the books and put in the new word participator. Participator. We are all participating in what is happening. This is John Wheeler. Now that was in 1909. This experiment was repeated again in 1998 in Israel. At the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel, look at what happened. They repeated the experiment. They got the same results. But look at this. They found something even more interesting. They found the experiment revealed that the more the observers watched the particles, the greater the effect. The scientists in 1998 discovered that the more we watch our physical world, the greater the effect we're having on our world just by being present in the world. Well, Einstein said that this is the step that made him crazy. Einstein did not like this idea. Einstein did not like the idea that we affect our world. He said, this is what he called spooky science, was the word he used. Einstein called it spooky science. He said, I like to think that a particle must have a separate reality independent of the measurements. In other words, Einstein said, I like to think the moon is there even if I'm not looking at it. Einstein is saying he likes to believe that we are not affecting the universe so much. But this is the big problem that he had in physics. The Buddhist traditions tell us the same thing. In the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, this is a quote from the text, says the same thing, that reality exists only where the mind creates a focus. Reality exists only where the mind creates the focus. Well, this is interesting, because if our reality exists only where our mind creates a focus, the question is, what are we focused on today? So let me ask you, since 9/11 happened, September 11th, 2001, what has been the focus of so much of the world? One word. What is that word? Fear. Fear. The point is this, that through our media, we are being conditioned to fear. We're given many things to be afraid of. The environment is changing. New viruses, new diseases are happening. They say there are many bad people in the world, that the weather patterns are changing, and that very bad things can happen in our world. If our focus is what creates the world around us, and this is where our focus is, what kind of world are we creating? But we can change this. You can change it very, very quickly. Right now, the ancient traditions say that you and I are living an important moment in history where we are choosing either war or peace for our future. And this is why a day like this is so important, because we're learning the language of our heart to make that choice. The language of our heart to make that choice. So we ask the question, who are we? We are reality makers. We are all reality makers. But the key is that we can make only what we believe in our hearts. We can make only what we believe. So all of this is leading to new science and a new spirituality that's coming together based on our beliefs. And it's happening right now. It's a very exciting time in the world of science. So the question, if the world is based in our beliefs, then the question is, what do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about your world? What I'd like to do is share with you 3 experiments that give you a reason to change your beliefs about who you are. 3 experiments, scientific experiments that tell us beyond any doubt that our inner experience of belief changes our outer world. And I'll do them very quickly. These are 3 very fast experiments. The first experiment, number 1, was performed in Geneva, Switzerland, University of Geneva, July 25th, 1997. It was reported to over 3,400 journalists, educators, scientists, engineers in more than 40 countries. Very, very famous experiment. What did they do? They took a particle of light, a photon, 1 photon, and they wanted 2 identical photons. So they took 1 particle and cut it into 2. So now you have photon 1, photon 2. They put them into a special machine that could take the photons and separate them by 14 miles. 7 miles in one direction, 7 miles in the other direction. And once they were separate, they could begin the experiments. So here are the two photons. We're going to shoot them 14 miles apart. Here they go. Boom. Okay, now this particle is 14 miles from this particle. And what they found is this. Whatever they do to one particle here, the other particle acts like it is still connected even though it's 14 miles apart. The particle acts like it's still connected even though it's 14 miles apart. And the question that they're asking is why? If you take two particles and you separate them, why do they act like they are still connected? This is important for you and for me, because the phenomenon is called entanglement. Whoops. It's called entanglement. So that is the first experiment. The experiment, and all I'm asking that you remember from this experiment is simply this. Once particles are physically separated, even though they are no longer together physically, the energy is still connected. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that? Okay, here's why this is important. This is why this is a very important experiment. Because scientists tell us if we could go back in time to the beginning of our entire universe, there was a time when everything was connected. That the universe today is many light years in diameter. But if you could take every one of those little particles of matter in the entire universe and bring them all back together, there's a time when everything was connected. These arrows, this is from the Hubble Space Telescope. It's believed to be the very center of the universe. The time that scientists call the Big Bang, when everything began. If we could go back to that time, if we could go back to the Big Bang, what would the universe look like? A long, long time ago, far, far away. What would the universe look like? Here, we'll see that again. A long time ago, far away. What would the universe look like? Right, and someone is saying it looks like a little ball. Right here. Can you see this right here? If you could go a long time ago, scientists tell us that the universe, the entire universe, if you could bring all of the matter together and take all the empty space out, that the entire universe would be about the size of a single green pea, and everything is connected. Now the scientists tell us that at this time everything was very compressed, and that the universe, the temperature was about 18 billion million degrees Fahrenheit. And I said, come on, scientists, how do you know that for sure? And they said, okay, we don't know that for sure, but it was hot. It was really, really hot. Okay? So we know a long time ago the universe was hot. And then it began to expand. It began to expand and continues to expand today. Here's the point. The point is, the experiment showed that once a particle is physically connected and then physically separated, the energy is still connected. That was the experiment. Scientists are now telling us the universe was once physically connected and is now separate, but energy is still connected. And that is the reason why you and me and everything is still connected. Does that make sense to you? Does that help to make sense? It makes sense to me. As a scientist, I need to understand this. The instant everything was connected, this is called the Big Bang singularity, is the term for this. So the question is, are we still connected? The answer is, you bet we are. We are very, very connected. That was the first experiment. See, that was an easy experiment, right? Let's do another one. Second experiment. This is performed by Russian scientist Vladimir Poponin. 1992. Vladimir Poponin took a glass tube. He removed all of the air from inside the tube, creating what we call a vacuum, implying that the tube is empty. But it's not empty. We know there is something in that tube, and you are now experts at what is in the tube, because what is in the tube are photons, little particles of light. Photons are in that tube. And the scientists measured them to see where the photons are. Are they sticking to the sides? Are they piled up on the bottom? Where are the photons? Here's what they found, the first part of this experiment. They found when they measured them that they were completely random. That the photons were everywhere, random. No surprise. Everything is good. Sorry. Okay, this is the first part of the experiment. Everybody is happy so far. Science is good so far. Now, look at what they did. They took some human DNA and they put human DNA into the photons. And they asked this question. This is a powerful question, my friends. They asked the question, what effect does human DNA have on the photons? But what they're really asking is, what effect does the stuff that your body is made of have on the stuff this world is made of? That is a powerful question. Does that make sense? Did that translate okay? They're asking, what effect does the stuff of the human body, what effect do we have on our physical world? In conventional science, there is nothing that allows for the effect. In conventional science, we were taught to believe that there is no effect. But that's not what these experiments show. Watch this. They put human DNA in with the photons, and the photons aligned themselves with the DNA. The photons were physically changed in their arrangement. The photons moved in the presence of the DNA. The stuff our world is made of changed in the presence of the stuff our bodies are made of. This is a powerful experiment. It's the first time it's been shown in the laboratory that your body is changing your world. Then they said, what happens if we take the DNA out? What happens to the photons? Well, what happened, they were not prepared for. Because when they took the photons out, when they took the DNA out, the photons acted like the DNA was still there. As if they were still connected. As if they were still connected. The question is why? There's nothing that explains this in traditional science, but in the new science, there is. This is called the DNA phantom effect. If you would like to Google this on your computer, you can research this for yourself. And all of these references are on my website, so you don't have to write the reference down. Experiment number 2, all that I'm showing is that DNA affects our physical world. The stuff that you're made of affects your physical world. One more quick experiment, and we're going to take a bathroom break. We started late. Okay. Experiment number 3. This is a paper released in 1993 by an organization called the Institute of Heart math, H-E-A-R-T-M-A-T-H, heart math. We'll talk about them later today. But what they showed is this. Heart math showed around every human heart there is a field of energy that we can measure. It looks like this. It's between 5 feet and 8 feet in diameter. How much in meters? How many meters is that? Do you know, 5 to 8 approximately?
Divide by 3.
How much?
Divide by 3.
Divide by 3. So 2.5 to 8, 3, 2, 4, 2.5 to 3, 3.5 meters. Okay, 2.5 to 3.5 meters approximately around every human heart. This field is there. And I asked the scientist the question. I said, if this field is there around every human heart, and it's so powerful, why would that field stop at only 2 to 3 meters? And they said, that is the limitation of our equipment. They said, in nature, the field around the human heart extends many, many miles from where your heart actually exists. So there are approximately 1,000 people in this room. If you are within 2 to 3 meters of another person, and you are, there are 1,000 hearts, but one field. One heart field. And that field is so real that we will measure it and use it after lunch. We can actually measure the field and we'll use it after lunch. And as you change the way that you feel in your heart, you will see the field in this room change on the screen. So that's what we'll do this afternoon. Okay, so they know this field is here. The question that they asked was, what effect does our heart have on the DNA of our bodies? You all have seen DNA as a double helix. And what scientists have found is that some emotions will relax the helix. Some emotions will contract that helix, tighten it. When the DNA is relaxed, you are healthy. You have a strong immune system. Your DHEA levels are high. And when the DNA is tight, your immune system suffers. Your DHEA levels are low. So here's the experiment. They're asking the question, what happens if we change the way we feel in our hearts? What effect does it have on the DNA? And here's the experiment. What they found was in the presence of positive emotions, gratitude, appreciation, love, compassion, all the things that you would expect as positive emotions, look at the DNA, it relaxed in a positive, life-affirming way. In the presence of anger, jealousy, hate, rage, frustration, the DNA was tight like a little top. And all that the people did was have a feeling. They had a feeling and they changed the DNA in their body. This is the actual research report. Look at the words. It says, individuals trained in feelings of deep love and appreciation were able to intentionally change the shape of their DNA. And all they did was have a feeling, and by having the right feeling, the right belief in their heart, they changed the DNA in their body. They changed their immune system. They changed their hormone levels of DHEA. They changed their lives. The study goes on to say this. It says that human emotion produces effects which defy conventional laws of physics. and their relationship to space and time. What does that mean? Very simply, it means that you and I can create a feeling in our bodies, and when we have that feeling, we are no longer limited by the laws of physics as we know those laws today. Maybe some laws, but not those laws. We are no longer limited by the laws of biology as we know those laws today. And all we do is create a feeling in our bodies. That's all we do. That's how powerful you are. Okay, this is where I wanted to be before we take our bathroom break. Here is the bottom line to these discoveries. Number one, it says that emotion changes the DNA in our bodies. You saw that, right? Emotion changed the DNA. The DNA changes the matter of the world. The DNA changes the photons, the stuff our world is made of. If you take out the middle section, what we're now saying is that emotion changes matter. And you saw the experiments that prove that to your mind. When the heart has feelings of gratitude and appreciation, it changes the DNA, and the DNA is changing the stuff of our world. And when the heart is having anger, hate, jealousy, rage, it changes the DNA in another way, and it affects our world. These are the experiments that show us what the ancient traditions always said. And that is that you have a power inside of your body that affects the world beyond your body. Okay, I wanted to do the technical things early in the day, first thing in the morning. We're going to talk about this a little bit more after the break. Then we're going to go into the monasteries in Tibet, in Egypt, and look at the ancient texts. And we'll see how this internal technology is applied in the real world. 15 minutes? Okay, so, well, thank you. Thank you. So, grazie, grazie. Come sta? Ben? Good. Okay. Grazie. We have a correction, a modification in one word translation that I would like to share with you. This is important. I'm making a distinction between waves that are moving and waves that are in one place, not moving. The translation came as a statica wave. The correction is onda stacionaria. Onda stacionaria, stationary. It's okay? Is that good? It's important. Muy importante. Okay, so the first couple of hours I wanted to share with you the science. And I know that it's a little technical in places, and I appreciate your patience with my slides and with my explanation. But does it help to understand? Can you see how a feeling in your heart has an effect on the world beyond your heart? Can you begin to see that? Does that make sense? So what is happening when we have a feeling in our hearts? We're creating electrical and magnetic waves inside of our bodies that extend beyond our bodies into the world around us. And what's so interesting is the research shows that those waves extend not just 1 meter or 2 meters, many, many kilometers beyond where our heart physically resides. So right now in this room is having an effect on Italy beyond this building, beyond these walls. And you'll see this afternoon when many, many people get together with one feeling, many hearts come together and create one feeling, it can change the world, and you'll see just how much. But it's only a miracle until we understand the science. Then it's no longer a miracle, it becomes a technology, a powerful internal technology. So this film was created in a medicineless hospital in Beijing, China. Medicineless hospital. No medicine hospital. I like that hospital. This film shows a woman who has been diagnosed with a cancer in her bladder. A 3-inch diameter cancer in her bladder. And Western doctors say they can do nothing. They say, we can't help you. So she has gone to a clinic in China where they think differently, and they apply the technology from the ancient wisdom that is the same as the science that we just saw. So what you will see is this. There are 3 practitioners, 3 people trained to feel just the right feeling, the precise, correct feeling in their hearts. They create the feeling as if the woman is already healed. They create the feeling as if the woman is already healed. Now we will look inside of her body through a sonogram, through ultrasound. We can look into her body and we can watch her cancer disappear in 3 minutes in the presence of the language that heals. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that? Does that make sense? Would you like to see that? Okay. Good. So what you will see is the woman is awake. She is conscious. She has no anesthetic. She believes in the process. She believes in what is happening. And there are 3 practitioners who are trained to create the feeling in their bodies as if the woman is already healed. And then on the computer screen, we will see 2 images. One image is before the healing, and one image is actual time, real time, so we can see the healing happen. And while the healing is happening, you will hear the practitioners chant a word. And I want you to know there is no magic in the word. It could be any word. But this word is the word that they have chosen that reinforces for them, that tells them the feeling. So they agreed that this is the word that would create the feeling for them. But it could be any word. I want you to know that. So I'm explaining this now, and we'll explain it again as we go through the film.
Over 8 years, the center has successfully treated more than 180 types of illnesses, including bladder cancer.
Can 到了没有？就是在这个膀胱，三角球的左侧，和一个压壶，这么一个中块。给它上去。现在写的。 法器，各位老师，咱们一块用力量法器。
对。看那个看得下去的，学习放松。人就想着一下就彻底散掉。
你放松，老师在这儿。
给我听听听。
小了，站着。好，没了，再站着。没了，好，没了，消除场，没了，把场打破，没了，好了，没了，好了，哎，不好意思，
能看出来，这是您。
金苗，
现在只能看一下的。
那个有1分钟，还往前走，那个
上来，走了，好，没了。
She's awake. She's conscious. There are 3 practitioners behind her. And here is the tumor, right here. The black is the emptiness of her bladder. This is the tumor. And now they take a snapshot for reference, a snapshot now. Okay, this is the real time. So this is now reference. This is actual time. This right here. Okay. This is 2 minutes, 40 seconds. 2 minutes, 40 seconds. This, on the left-hand side, is the reference tumor. On the right-hand side, the tumor is gone. In the Western way of thinking, modern science says this is a miracle because they do not understand the field that connects everything, and they do not understand the language that speaks to that field. But once we understand, that is no longer a miracle, that is a technology. And you listen to the chant. Wa sa 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 sa. Okay, the word that they are using, wa sa, loosely translated, means already happened. It's already done. In their mind and in their heart, they're coming from the place that the healing has already happened. Not that it's going to happen, and not that it's about to happen, or that it's a long, slow happening, that it has already happened. And this is important, because the field of energy that we are about to discuss is a mirror. It reflects our feeling of what we are experiencing in the moment. So if our belief is that our healing is about to happen, or that our perfect relationship will come to us someday, or that our abundance in the bank will happen someday, the field will keep reflecting someday, because it is open-ended. There is no outcome. There is no conclusion. This is a very subtle, very powerful understanding of how this field works. This field that we're about to discuss now, the divine matrix, is a field that mirrors now, not in the future, not in the past, this moment. So what we choose to experience in our lives we must first feel in our hearts as if it has already happened. And this is something that happens all the time in this part of the world. It's not one-time only healing. They do this all the time. But when Western scientists see this, it makes no sense. Because Western science says that our beliefs and our feelings and our emotions have no effect on the world outside of our bodies. But we know that that's not true. The experiments that we showed just before the break, the 3 experiments, what they showed is that human DNA has a direct effect on our physical world. 1. Number 2, they showed that human emotion changes the DNA that is changing our physical world. And it's happening because there's a field that connects everything together. The experiments suggest that Max Planck's matrix, this matrix, is the conduit. Now, the idea that everything is connected is a very old idea. Even in science, in the late 1800s, there was a belief that there was an invisible web of energy that connects everything in the 1800s. And scientists were in a very heated debate, very controversial, as to whether or not this field exists. There was a very famous experiment that was conducted to determine if the field called the ether field actually existed. In the year 1887, the very famous Michelson-Morley experiment was designed to tell once and for all, is the field here or no? Yes or no? The field exists? It does not exist. In my opinion, it was a good experiment. However, it was poorly interpreted. For over 100 years, our science has been based in a belief that is incorrect. It's incorrect. Now, this is very interesting. 100 years later, 1986, the United States Air Force repeated that experiment. 1986, the United States Air Force replicated the Michelson-Morley experiment. They published the results in the very prestigious journal Nature, the scientific journal Nature. What they found was this. They repeated the experiment with good equipment, much better equipment. The bottom line is that the field exists. They found that the field is actually there. This is reported in August 1986, the journal Nature, volume 322. They said, the field is there. And not only is the field there, it measured precisely the way that Michelson and Morley had predicted 100 years earlier. They just didn't have the equipment to work this out. Now, why don't we know about this? This should have made the cover of every major magazine and newspaper. This should have been on CNN headline news or Sky News. But this changes everything for the scientists. Because the textbooks all say the field is not there. Entire careers are based on the field not being there. And now the field is there. And the scientists are saying, okay, the field is here, what do we do with it? What do we do with this field? Well, the field now is so new. Now that it has been rediscovered, everyone is giving it a different name. Many, many names for the same field. Some are calling it a very technical name, the quantum hologram. Quantum hologram. Okay? Some are simply calling it the field. A colleague of mine and a friend, former Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, when he was in space, he had an awakening when he was behind the dark side of the moon, completely cut off from all communications with the Earth. It was cold. It was dark. There was no communication with the Earth until their little tiny space capsule came around the dark side of the moon. And those astronauts could only hope that all of the engineers at NASA did a very good job on their spacecraft so that they could come around on the other side. And when they did, and Edgar Mitchell looked at our little tiny blue planet suspended in the blackness of space, something changed inside of him. He felt different about his life and his world. And he has now dedicated his life, since he has come back from those missions, he has dedicated his life to studying consciousness. And he founded an organization called the Institute of Noetic Sciences. Noetic, Noetic Sciences. And part of the mission of the Institute of Noetic Sciences is to understand this field that connects everything, and they simply call it the field. Edgar Mitchell called it nature's mind. Stephen Hawking, the physicist, calls it the mind of God. Max Planck called it the matrix, and now we're calling it the divine matrix. All names for the same field. I wanted to share this with you. I want you to know this field is there and it's real. And you're going to see just how real this field really is. Scientists have visualized, because they could not see this field, they imagined that it would look like many filaments. Filaments is okay? Look like many filaments of energy. How do you say that in Italian? Filaments. Filamente. Grazie. Okay, filament. So they imagined it would look like many filaments of energy if we could see it. But scientists could not see it until recently. National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, built a satellite and launched it into deep space for the purpose of measuring fields that we cannot see with our eyes. It's called the Chandra, Chandra Observatory. Recently, the Chandra Observatory sent back information that has now been modeled on the computers, and it tells us that what we used to believe was empty space is not empty. There is no empty space. In 1999, the astrophysicist took the data from the Chandra Observatory and they ran it through the computer so that the computer could show them what is in the emptiness of space. Would you like to see what that image looks like? Do we have time? Oh yes, of course we have time. That's why we're here. Okay, the next image is the image of the Chandra Observatory showing us what is in the emptiness of space. Okay. And this is what it looks like. The bright spot that you see in the center, that is the center of our universe. And we are out here somewhere. These are the patterns of energy that cannot be seen by the naked eye, but that the sensors have picked up in deep space, showing that there are filaments of energy that connect everything. There is no empty space. Isn't this a beautiful image? It's a powerful image. I think it's the divine matrix. Okay. Now, this image right here, what do you think this is? Just take a guess. Anyone. Guess what this image might be. And think small. I heard someone say it. These are the filaments of the energy in your brain These are the neural networks of the human brain. It looks very similar to the filaments of the matrix in the universe. Look at this. These are the neurons in the human brain. Here are the filaments of the empty space from deep space. And it brings to mind, as above, so below. They are very, very similar. And the question now that scientists are asking is, do we communicate with these fields of energy through these fields of energy? And I think that's precisely what we're seeing. Precisely what we're seeing. I think these are very powerful images. This is, to my knowledge, the first time we've been able to see the energy that is believed to be empty space. And we know that it is not empty. As above, so below. So this field of energy, the divine matrix, we know it does more than simply connect everything. It is the container for the entire universe. The divine matrix is the container that holds our entire universe, number one. Number two, it is a bridge between your inner world and your outer world. This is the reason why your thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, prayers in here have an effect on the world beyond your body. And number three, it is a mirror. This field reflects in the world around us what we create in the world inside of us. And this is the reason I wanted you to see the healing of the cancerous tumor. Because you saw it with your own eyes. You saw the physical world change, but no one touched that tumor. There was no physical intervention. You saw that physical world change in response to a non-physical experience, the belief of the practitioners. So, to unleash the power, to unleash the force of this divine matrix in our lives, first we have to understand how it works, and we're doing that now. Secondly, we must learn to speak the language. We must learn to speak the emotions that this field uses, and that's what this day is all about. So I have a question. I'm going to go back to an experiment that we did before the break, a long time ago, before the break. Bless you, bless you. Where we had two particles of light, two photons, separated by 14 miles. From here to here, 14 miles. And the question is this. When one photon had an experience, the other one acted like it was having the same experience, even though they are no longer connected. For example, if this photon were forced to go on the red path, that photon would always take the red path. If this photon were forced on the blue path, that photon would always take the blue path. If this photon were forced to rotate in one direction, or its charge was changed, the other photon always had exactly the same experience. And the question is why? You now have almost all of the information to explain that. One last piece. Whoop. The particles are said to be entangled. They are also said to be in a field that is holographic. Let me guess. Holographic. Holográfico. Oh, I'm going to do this. How many have heard of a hologram? How many know what a hologram is? How many know what one is? Okay, let me give you an example. This is a very, very powerful principle. The holographic principle is the way that nature creates tremendous change very, very quickly. The holographic principle is the way that nature creates change in large systems very, very quickly. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, there was a bookmark that was produced all over the world. A shiny little strip of foil that had a picture on the bookmark, and if you would hold the picture in the light, the image would come alive. It's called a hologram. There was a face of Jesus. There was Mother Mary. There was a pyramid. There was a flower unfolding. Did you see those a few years ago? Okay, those are called holograms. Now, you can do an experiment. If you have one of those bookmarks, you can do an experiment, but you can only do it one time because you will destroy your bookmark in the process. But here's what you can do. If you have one of those bookmarks, you can take a pair of scissors and you can cut your holographic bookmark into many, many pieces. And you can take the smallest piece, tiny, tiny piece, under a microscope with a very sharp blade and cut that piece in half one more time. And you can take that little fleck, that little speck of the bookmark, and under magnification you will look and the entire image will be in that piece. The entire image will be there because it is a hologram. A hologram. The definition of a hologram is that every fragment of the pattern reflects, mirrors, contains the entire pattern. Every fragment, no matter how small, is a reflection of the entire pattern. This is important because it's said that you and I are holographic in the universe. That within us, the entire universe lives within us. And within every cell of your body. The entire universe lives within every cell of your body. So here's an example. If this is the whole universe, right here, the entire universe, and we cut it in half. And now we take this and we cut it in half again. So now the universe is in 4 fragments. Because this is a hologram, every fragment contains the entire image. Does that make sense? Good with that? Does it make sense in the back? Yes. Okay. Because this is important. If that makes sense. Okay, if every fragment contains the entire image, no matter how small, then what happens when you make a change in one place of the pattern? What happens if we make a change in one place in the hologram? If every fragment mirrors all of the other fragments, if you make a change in one place, where do you see the change? Everywhere. Precisely. And this is how you and I may create change in this world very quickly. If we understand the language, because we are holographic. We are patterns of this world, of the universe. When we choose peace in our hearts with the language that this matrix recognizes, peace must happen. When we choose healing in our bodies, when we choose joy in our lives, when we choose compassion for our friends, when we make that choice with the language of the heart, not the mind, the heart, it must happen. Okay. So does this make sense so far? Okay, because I'm going to ask you a question, and it is a trick question. Let's go back to our experiment. What the scientists found is when they disturbed one photon here, this photon acted like it had the experience. So the question is this: how did the information from this photon get to this photon so quickly? Sometimes this photon even had the experience before this one began. And scientists say, how can that happen? The conventional wisdom is that somehow this photon, this particle of light, is transmitting information here like you would a radio wave or like you would electricity. The problem is that the information is traveling too fast. It's traveling faster than the speed of light. And that can't happen according to laws of physics. So the question is this: how did the information get from here to here? And that is a trick question. What is the answer? And you must answer before we go to lunch. It's a trick question. Okay. How did the information get from there to there? Or did it? And the answer is, the information did not have to travel. Yes. The information doesn't travel from there to there. It's already there. The information is already there because it's part of the hologram. Remember, in the hologram, what happens in one place happens everywhere. The information is already there. So that is why, when this photon has an experience, this one looks like it's having the same experience. They are still connected in the hologram. This is important for you and for me. This is why your prayers are so important. This is why you can send your prayer to a loved one in the battlefield of Iraq, or in Africa, or in America, halfway around the world, or next door, in another room. This is why you can send your prayers, and they are so powerful, because the prayer is already there. You create the prayer in your heart, and the prayer is already there. You create the feeling, just like those 3 practitioners in the medicineless hospital. They created the feeling as if the woman was already healed. In their heart, they felt the feeling of gratitude and appreciation for the healing that has already happened. That didn't have to travel anywhere. It was already there. The healing had already happened in their hearts, and the physical reality mirrored that healing. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that? It's a very powerful concept. Very powerful. What it means is that very few people can create a lot of change in this world very quickly if those people understand the language that the field recognizes. And that's why we're here today. That's why we're here today. How do you feel about that? You okay with that? Make sense? Good. Good. Okay. This is a hologram. This is a hologram. Our bodies are holographic. Our universe is holographic. In the holograph, there is no here and there. It's already everywhere. Everything is happening everywhere at once. Ancient traditions describe this experience in what is called the great spiritual mystery. And the mystery looks like this. I'd like to share the mystery with you in the ancient words, and then we'll look at the mystery in the language of science. And you'll see that it's precisely the same thing. The ancient tradition said something that you and I do in our lives triggers a process inside of our bodies. And that process interacts with the forces of creation and affects our physical world. So the great spiritual mystery says that something that we do in our lives affects our physical world. If we do not understand this mystery, when we see it happen, we say it's a miracle. If we do understand, no miracle. Now, it's technology. Technologique. Oh. Technologique. Oh. No? Ah, that. Okay. Thank you. By the end of today, you will understand the divine matrix. I will understand Italian. And it's all good. It's all good. So this is the great spiritual mystery. Now look at what the science from the experiments, they say the same thing in different words. Look at this. They say that heart-based feeling and emotion changes the DNA in our bodies. When the DNA changes, it produces quantum effects that change our physical world, and we have said precisely the same thing.